Good evening, students. Today we are going to start with classical criticism. But the first topic that I am going to do for today's session, that is Unit 2, Plato on Imitation and Art. This is actually the specific module of MEG 5 of IGNU, but any students can go through the session because these topics are also very important for UGC NET. So let us start with today's session. Now, as if we are here to start with Plato or discussion about Plato, then the first thing we should learn who was he and how his life came up chronologically. Now, who was Plato? Plato was world's best known philosopher in ancient Greece. Born in 427 BC and died on 347 BC in Athens, Greece. He was the student of Socrates, he was the teacher of Aristotle, he had contributed with lots of works such as Apology, Phaedrus, Republic, and Symposium. Okay, now in this session, it is impossible to discuss about every works written here. So we are only going to discuss about the work Republic. Now Plato's theory of imitation and art. That means we are going to discuss that what Plato thought, what was the opinion of Plato on imitating a person or imitating from the surroundings and about art. Plato's view on art in his famous book Republic are what are they? Art, including poetry, drama, painting, drawing, etc., is imitation. Everything which we are doing through poetry, through drama, through painting, or through drawing, that is actually imitating. What does imitating mean? Imitating means we are copying someone, and that is very bad. Now, art is an inferior thing. Why it is inferior? Because for Plato, art was just an imitation of worldly things. Just now I said that imitation means you are copying from the surroundings. Next one, art deals with imitation of imitation. You keep on copying and copying and copying. So many of duplicate copies mean that you are already far from the reality or originality is lost. Plato is against of poetry. He wanted to banish poets. That means he was dead against of the poets and he hated the poets because he believed that poetry spoiled the youth's mind. Because when a child is learning a rhymes, learning a when being a student of bachelor's degree, master degree, we also as a student we just learn the poem, but we don't get the scope of creating something inside the poet, right? So when you are unable to create anything, that means it's bad. So according to Plato, poetry was bad. Limitations of art according to Plato. What were the limitations? Art is mere imitation. Neither art nor artist contain or convey any real knowledge of real things. Why? It is said because whatever poet is writing in his poetry, it is his imagination, nothing original. Art is harmful for ideal society. Art can generate a dangerous imitative behavior. That is, example, whatever we see in TV is not real. There are some imitation, some imagination. So, example, Superman movie. Is it possible the way the Superman movie shows us the activities? It is impossible in real life. Rather, if we practice such activities, it is sometimes dangerous for our life. Art should be carefully censored in order to cultivate the health of both individual and society. When we write something, when you create something, when you do something, you should always keep in mind that your society is becoming healthy through that, rather not getting towards destruction by your creation. Art or poetry affects the emotion, not the reason. Now, what was the second point? Plato's view about poetry. What he opined about poetry? According to Plato, poetry should be virtuous. Poetry is not just to offer pleasure. Rather, poetry actually gives us pleasure. That's why some people love to read poetry. It should teach some morals. It should contribute some knowledge to the society. A poet must be a good teacher. That means when he creates something, some people can learn something from that. Plato objected poetry on three grounds: educational point of view, philosophical point of view, and moral point of view. Now, in the next video, I am going to discuss the second half of the answer.